All right. So in this lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we are going to set up our vocabulary journal kind of for this school year. It's going to change a little bit when we get into our next unit, but it's going to be relatively the same. And one thing is I want everyone to set it up the same way because it makes it easy to find the information. And then towards the end of our units, you're going to be able to use your notebook and your vocabulary and any questions or drawings that we put in it to kind of help answer your final project. Okay. So it is going to be key that you do this, whether you're virtual, whether you're in class, whether you're full-time virtual. It is important that you do fill out your vocabulary journal. It's going to be a major resource that you're going to be able to use going forward. All right, so let's quick recap. For Earth Science, we are in our Pearson text. And if you guys remember, when you log into Pearson, you guys are going to go to classes and then the e-text. And in order to get where we are going to go to table of contents. You're going to go to the chapter, and then you are going to go to the lesson. Okay. So in this case, we're just going to start off with chapter 1, lesson 1, which is called the Earth's system. So you'll notice, and I kind of did this in a video earlier, that we have the Earth system, we have key ideas, we've got the paragraphs that we're going to be reading about. We have words that are highlighted, and we can either get the definitions either in the reading or by clicking on the color. Okay. Remember that there is a plus sign if we want to have it read it to us. And we find our vocabulary usually on the second page in the upper part right here. And we are going to write down all vocabulary words. So what does that look like? Okay, so I actually created a very basic version of this. Ignore my wonderful handwriting. I know it's beautiful. One of the things that we've had people do in the past, and I will show you an example of this, is color code it. Obviously, if you kind of leave it the same, it's kind of hard to pick out different things. If you color code it, it does make it easier to go back and get information. So a lot of times we've had people like color code these as a bright color and then the actual answer as a different color, vocabulary, same thing, or then go through and highlight them. Either way will work, but here's how I want you to set it up, okay? On the top, I just want you to put Earth Science vocab to start it, okay? It should be the beginning part of your notebook, and that should work. Then I want you to label the chapter. So it's chapter 1, lesson 1. That's the lesson we're in. And what is the lesson called? It's called the Earth system. You can put that in 2 lines or make it pretty. I don't really care. Okay. But I do think that information is important because then if I go back as a teacher and I say, hey, what did we learn in lesson 1? And from chapter 1, you can pull this back out and be like, okay, cool. We learned about the main parts of the Earth system and constructive and destructive forces. So please do it that way. Then we're going to break it down into 2 different spots. We are going to do the key ideas and the vocabulary in 2 different spots. The key ideas, remember, are like the main things that we should be getting out of the lesson. Okay. So by the end of the lesson, you should be able to answer these questions. The vocabulary is the straight up vocabulary. And you'll notice when I started filling this out, what I did is I started writing the key ideas and I gave space underneath it. So as we read, I can then go back in and fill out these lines with the answer. Okay. So what does that look like? So in our textbook, when the first thing is, here's our main ideas. So what are the main parts of the Earth system? And I'll kind of do this as a side by side. So now I have my key idea, which is right here, the main part of the Earth system. I left a blank. And then I wrote my second key idea, how do constructive and destructive forces change Earth? And I left a blank. Okay. So now as I read, I'm going to be looking for those answers, or I'm going to be looking for a key. Okay. Then we go down and we do our vocabulary. And the nice part about vocabulary, if you start to write them in order from left to right, top to bottom, they are in order. So if you do it that way, so if you notice, I have system and energy. My first word is system. My second vocabulary word is energy. Okay, now here's where it gets tricky. I know the initial thought is, well, I can just go in and just write the key ideas and write the vocabulary words and not actually read the content. We are gonna expect that you guys read the content because obviously what's between here and here is important. If you just pick out the vocabulary words and don't actually read it, it's not gonna help you. Keep in mind, if you don't feel like reading, you got the play button to play. Okay, so that goes through and it's pretty straightforward. The other thing that we need you guys to pay attention to is sometimes the vocabulary words are going to be inside of little boxes. There may also be pictures sometimes that we have you draw in there. So in the lesson, as we're going through, we may say, all right, on page whatever we're on, 6 or 7, I want you to draw a picture of what the atmosphere, geosphere, hydrosphere, and over here, the biosphere look like. So you would then, on the bottom of your paper, draw a picture of that. Now, why is drawing pictures important? It's important because it actually forces you to think differently with the content and allows you to get a better understanding. Okay? So, first question is, what are the main parts of the Earth system? Hey, guess what? Notice there's a key up here. The Earth system has 4 main spheres: the atmosphere, hydrosphere, geosphere, and biosphere. As a major source of energy for the Earth processes, the sun can also be considered part of the Earth system. So I would write that in here. You can write it word for word, that's fine. But if it's going to help you summarize it, summarize it. So what are the main parts of the Earth system? Hydrosphere, atmosphere, geosphere, and biosphere. Okay? Because then down below, you're actually going to have those definitions. That works as well. All right. So what in the world would this actually look like when it's kind of all said and done? All right. I'm going to show you what Mrs. Crayons did. Sorry, Mrs. Kovach. What Mrs. Kovach did. So here's her pretty version. Notice the colors. Notice she has the key idea. She even wrote a key. Chapter 1, Introducing Earth, Lesson 1. Okay. What are the main parts of the Earth system? And then she has the definitions here. And then there's 4 spheres of the Earth. Then she went down and she drew a picture. So you have the hydrosphere, the atmosphere, the biosphere, and the geosphere. You guys are going to be learning about what those are. And then she has her next key idea. And so she set hers up a little bit differently, and I'm asking you guys to put the key ideas on top and then answer them. But either way, she has all this. And do you guys agree that this is a lot easier to go back and read than what I have here as just kind of the boring pencil? It is. So that is how we set up our vocabulary. So we are going to expect, both Mr. Wall and myself are going to expect that you guys are setting up your vocabulary journal. And then it means every lesson you're going to set it up that way. So if we end up going to table of contents and we go into lesson 3, convection in the mantle, we are going to set it up exactly the same way. There's our key ideas. So we'd write those in. We'd write chapter 1, lesson 3, convection in the mantle. How was heat transferred would be the key idea. How is convection occurred? There's your first answer for your key idea. And on the second page, guess what we have? Our vocabulary. So this one only has 6. So sometimes we're going to have 8 to 10. Sometimes we're going to have 2. All right. But that is how to set up your vocabulary journal. And I hope you guys set it up this way. And like I said, it's going to be really beneficial. Thank you, and we'll talk to you later.